Everyone, what a happy room. Do you agree? Yes. You know, when you were all visiting, as you kept entering, I thought, well, why don't we just cancel the program and just talk to each other? Because really, imagine this. Just look around. Everyone in this room, in this beautiful space, has brought a love of nature, an absolute connection of some kind. And I almost feel I don't even need the slides. I'll show some. I've got a lot of words. But what I really want us to do this morning during this very brief time, it's exactly the amount of time we need. It's only an hour that we'll begin together, and then for those who are interested and able to stay later, we'll have a brief introduction to the actual experience in the forest. I did what I always do before I take a group in the forest. I walk into the forest and I ask the forest if it will be my partner and keep us safe and give each person the medicine that he or she needs. The first time I did that, I felt silly, but now it is so deep in me. I hear the response actually physically in my body. Babs mentioned that we've begun a mindfulness meditation class here in this beautiful space on Fridays at 10 o'clock, and you're all welcome. I mean that. It is lovely to really practice just simply being present in the present moment. She mentioned my teacher, John Kabat-Zinn, who really launched this for me, but there are many, many now who I would call my teachers. You are my teachers. We'll be learning together today. But John Kabat-Zinn's definition of mindfulness is something that I think is important for us to begin with here. It's paying attention in the present moment on purpose, without judgment, as if your life depends on it. Paying attention in the present moment, on purpose, without what? Judgment. Judgment. No judgment here. And that's the beauty that I've found in the forest. The forest abides, nature abides, outside this time that we live in that says things are black or white, right or wrong. That doesn't exist in nature. And so we're going to find out today some of the science back of why this is such a wow thing. I mean, it's really popular. But I'll tell you, I began this work with animals, with actually, Doc, are you over here? Yeah. Doc, can you come with me? Tell me your name, Mary.
Marianne.
Yeah, Marianne can come with me. Doc, you can come. It's okay. You can come with me. How many of you have an animal who's important to you? Anybody? Well, Doc is important to Marianne. And when I saw that he had come today, I knew I wanted to welcome him. Because in nature and forest therapy, we talk about deepening our relationship with ourselves and the more than human world. And when we can do that, we all know, if how many people raised their hand or said, yes, I have an animal who's dear to me. You know that animal does not judge you, does it? No. There's no judgment. There's just unconditional love. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Marianne.
You're welcome.
So also, I was grateful that Babs mentioned Finland, because I was able, as a professor for many years at Moorhead State University in special education, I began to work with the college in general to see how we could be the best teacher education program within the colleagues throughout the state. And we kept reading about Finland. And we discovered that the more I read, I wanted to go there, and my chair and dean both said, you know, you're up for sabbatical. Why don't you go study this culture? They had no tests. They trust their teachers to teach. The teacher is there's lots of assessment going on. Because they don't bubble in doesn't mean they don't have tests. But the teacher knows the student, the individual student, and progresses. And I'm not going to give the talk on Finland, but I could, and I'd love that. But that's coming later. But I do want to mention this because it was in that culture of trust that I felt this same sense of being in nature. And the Finns have such a close relationship. Not just saunas and going naked into the sea as I did, but really, it was from my friend, my colleague, get this, my dear friend, one of the first that I met there at the university when I went, and I did over 100 interviews from kindergarten through university, taxi drivers, hairdressers. I interviewed everybody I met to tell me about their experience in school. Wow. And what I learned is that there are no dropouts. Think about it. Because if you're having trouble, they go and say, well, what do you care about? What's something you're interested in and you'd like to study? And they get that person engaged in something that's meaningful to them. So they succeed. And I asked a psychologist once, how do you do this? How do you focus on strengths? And he said, well, you see, we're a small country. We need everyone. We need everyone. And I'm not going to keep talking because I could tell you so many things and that'll come later. But for now, I just want to say how this brought me to you today. My colleague there, Anne Kestilal, had done her doctoral dissertation on walking. So of course she knew Thoreau, she knew all of my favorite writers, John Muir, all of the work that's been done here, but her dissertation was in Finnish. So I was propelled into my own study. Well, she called me 2 years ago when I first came to Batcave, and she said, Mattie, she actually calls me Marta, she said, you've got to learn about forest bathing. And I said, what? What are you saying? She said, forest bathing. And she said it like 3 times. I'm saying, Anne, what are you saying? She said, bathing, forest bathing. I said, are you saying bathing? And she said, yes, forest bathing. So I immediately started reading everything I could get my hands on. And then one day, I found this book, Shinrin-yoku, which literally means forest bathing in Japanese. And then I went to the back of the book, and just as I've found all my life, what I needed was there. I had to look for it, though. I had to have volition. I had to, but that passion was there. I wanted to learn about it. And there was the website for the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy, and this book by Amos Clifford. Amos founded the association, and it's here in America, so I could do it here. And this is what I've just completed. And there's lots of information. I have a website now. I'm getting, new cards made because I just finished the certification. The whole process of becoming a guide was so humbling. And I was so scared going through it because I felt like kindergarten. Now, I have a doctorate and I've taught for years. But my experience in Finland got me ready for this. Because really, as a teacher, we are really at best a facilitator of learning. We just help others find what they need because each individual is so unique. And we know now, I've studied neuroscience for years, and we know, hold up your thumb. Hold up your thumb. We are as unique as our thumbprint. We know now that our brains are as unique as our thumbprint or a snowflake. See, we know this intellectually, but we have all been damaged by an educational system that told us one size fits all. And those of us who know better, we know in our hearts that's not true. But it was the factory model that came along with Babs. We were talking about technology and the Industrial Revolution and all of that. It's a part of the world we live in. And now, at this critical juncture where we are in 2020, we're waking up and we're learning that the earth is alive and all sentient beings are connected and all of these things. So now there are actually tools, and Babs also mentioned mindfulness had also prepared me for this, because the tools of simply being present is what we need in the moment. We're given everything we need. And if we don't see it, it's because we're not there. We're somewhere else. We're thinking about next week or last week or 30 years ago or 10 years from now. Right now, in this moment, to the degree that we can, each of us in this room, just simply drop and be here. What a gift. I also want to honor Babs and Bob's daughter, Ann Elizabeth, her beautiful picture over here. She is really the reason we have this gorgeous space. And I love this round room, was in my dreams for years. So here we all are in this present moment together, and we all bring whatever we bring out of nature and our love and appreciation for nature. So how can we learn to better connect and know and help nature learn what we need from nature? So let us begin. I named this the science and experience of the medicine of being in the forest because I struggle with this. It's really that word experience that we need. But I am going to share some facts and figures, but that's really not the main thing that we need this morning. It's important to have facts and figures, but the main thing is the experience. Forest bathing, Shinrin-yoku, forest therapy, many names for the medicine of being in the forest. And when I say forest, I mean any of nature. Now, I live in a forest. Babs said I live on a preserve in Bat Cave, and it's the wilderness, nearly 400 acres of wilderness. And so the forest is very real to me. I use this term advisedly. But do you know that the Amos Clifford, who started the association, said one of the most powerful walks that he conducted was in a parking lot in Los Angeles. So this word forest can be, a flower pot on your patio. The point is nature. The Japanese words translate literally into forest bathing. And although this is inspired from the Japanese, this really isn't a Japanese practice that we're doing here. It really just simply means spending time in nature in a way that invites healing interactions. That's where it all happens, is in that interaction. So right now, I just want to ask you to try to remember a time you spent, say on an extended period of time. Maybe it was a camping trip, or maybe it was just a long hike. Do you remember how you felt at that time? It could have been in the desert. Maybe it wasn't my backyard here. Maybe it was, I don't know, a beach. Maybe it was, I don't know, Alaska. I don't know. Maybe a lake, a pond, your grandmother's house. I don't know. How did you feel? Can you remember how you felt? Anybody? You don't have to say anything, but just give me a nod. Is anybody with me here? You got a feeling? What are some of the things that you remember? Maybe just call out one word or anything.
Liberation.
Liberation. Whew.
Peace.
Peace.
Serenity.
Serenity.
God's art.
God's art.
Connection.
Connection.
Humility.
Humility.
Wonder.
Wonder. Calmness. Oneness.
Heavenly.
Heavenly. Awareness.
Joy.
Joy. Thank you. Calm. We could go on. How beautiful. Well, these usually fall, we find, being a researcher, it's interesting to know this, into three categories. Physiological health benefits, and that might be more energy, better sleep, enhanced immunity, healthy digestion, reduced inflammation, lowered blood pressure. These are facts. These are tested. Another would be mental health impacts. And these might be an increased focus, and we're finding this. Your mind clears, able to think clearly, enhanced creativity, less stress, enhanced memory, less anxiety. And then the emotional, psycho-spiritual health impacts. These might include being more relaxed, happier, more connected, more alive, more grateful. You know what I'd love is to have a list of everything everybody just said, because you did it, didn't you? This whole room just filled up with all of those feelings of well-being. Well-being that I will just pause for a moment and say that I also, a great teacher of mine is Richie Davidson at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Years ago, as a psychologist, he was one of the first people to work with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, who sent him a text one day and said, actually it was a fax, remember faxes? It was a fax, and His Holiness said, Dr. Davidson, I'm really impressed with your research. It's wonderful. You're studying the effects of emotions on the brain, but did you ever think of studying the effects of positive emotions on the brain? And Richie said, I didn't know what to say, because it's hard. But he went to Dharamsala. He wired up all the meditators, the monks, and started his research 30 years ago, and now has the Center for Healthy Minds in Madison, Wisconsin. So his research has really been a cornerstone of my own work, because I'm going to give it to you. All that 30 years distills down to this. Well-being is a skill, just like learning a new sport or a musical instrument. What do you have to do? Who said practice? Yay. Yeah. So that's what we're doing on Fridays here. He's learning these skills to practice, to stay present, to be awake. Because this is possible. We were created. We're hardwired to be healthy. We have to work hard to screw it up. But we do. What we eat, what we drink, what we do, what we think, all of that. All of that. So back to this. Forest bathing for me is like a fast track, or just a way to be present. And this is spending time in forested areas, yes, for the purpose of enhancing health, wellness, and happiness. And it follows the general principle, that it is beneficial to spend time bathing in the atmosphere of the forest. But why do we use that term? Well, there is a long tradition of this. It's not just about healing people, and I really, this is the most important thing to all of us, I think, in this room. It includes healing for the forest, the rivers, the deserts, or whatever environment we're in. It's about being in relationship with ourselves and the more than human world. There is an incredible amount of research demonstrating that simply seeing the colors green and blue can push our bodies towards relaxation. And I can't wait to tell you this story. Anybody know where that is? Todd, where is that, Todd?
Chimney Rock.
Todd Morris is here, and he grew up as his family's land originally. Hickory Nut Falls. I spend a lot of time under that water. I hike it regularly. I was there one day, and I was writing my book, and I know what to do. I have learned this, but now the thing is, after today, you only have two things to do the rest of your life. You have to remember, and you have to practice. But first you have to remember. So I was feeling really stressed. I had deadlines. I'm writing all of this stuff with computers not working, or whatever. And so I knew what I had to do. I got in the car and I went to Chimney Rock, and I got on the Hickory Nut Falls trail. And I just immediately, as I walked, just dropped into that space of well-being, wellness, being clear in my mind and my thinking, all was well. Actually, it puts you in a place of no thinking, which is the most delicious of all. which is what real meditation does. I sit zazen, which is, that cuts away everything that's not real. So you're just simply, just pure awareness. That's it. Breathing in, breathing out. So I was on the trail and I passed an elderly gentleman. If you're here today, please don't be mad at me for calling you elderly, because I'm probably older than you are. But to me, it was, the image of an elderly person with 2 grandchildren. And I greeted them, and it was sweet. Here's a grandfather and grandson and granddaughter. And I can move, so I was at the falls long before they were. So I was sitting down there, and I was just letting this falls just kind of wash over me in the mist that's there when it's full. And this grandfather and his 2 grandchildren come up, and the little girl came over to me, and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just sitting. I'm writing a book, and I just needed time." Well, those words came out before I'd realized it. And she said, "Oh, I love books. What are you writing about?" And so I just, what do you tell a 7-year-old? You tell them the truth. I said, "I'm writing a book about how to slow down and be really present and be in nature." And, just really the power of just being around, how healthy it is to be around trees. She said, "You've got to write this in your book. You've got to write this. Tell them that even looking at a picture of a tree can make you feel better." I love that story, and her 2nd grade teacher or whoever taught her that, or maybe she. But the point is, this is hard research. We know now, this is measured. So, there are infinite numbers of healing activities that can be incorporated into a walk or forest. And this is healing when we make room, and that's keywords there, when we make room for listening, for quiet, and accepting presence, and for inquiry through all of the sensory modes we possess. I don't have this here, but there's a slide that I'd love to show you that's not coming up, so I'll just go back here. One of the things that made me fall in love with the nature and forest therapy is their motto. Would you like to hear it?
Yes.
The forest is the therapist. The guide opens the door. So it's really, for me as a guide, it's a matter of letting go and really honoring the individuals that I'm with. And I have learned time and time again. I'm having to write about it because as a writer I get so full. It's like I have to write the stories because everyone, regardless, like the 85-year-old man who was on my last walk, who just burst into tears as we were in our circle, and he was grieving the loss of his wife. He had not been able to cry, but in the forest he could, because there's no... So, and each person gets the exact medicine we need, and sometimes we don't even know what it is. I have another person on a walk recently who wrote to me that it took 2 weeks before she got it. She got it though, but it doesn't always happen in that moment. It's not in linear time. It's in a much deeper place that we carry with us, so it's always with us. I'm really needing somebody to tell me what time it is, because I have too many words. Janet, what do you got?
11:09.
Perfect. So, yeah, this thing about one of the reasons that they're finding that this is such a modern health solution is that it draws on nature's ability to calm us down, which we know, but what's going on? Well, it's activating our parasympathetic nervous system. Mindfulness activities do this also, and focused breathing. I have taught MBSR for over 5 years, and what I love about mindfulness-based stress reduction, it's an 8-week class that I'm going to be teaching in Lake Lure in March, I think, Anyway, it's an 8 weeks intensive of learning these practices. And what we're finding is the very same thing is happening. If you have high blood pressure, what happens? It goes lower. If it's low, it balances what you need. Heart rate, everything is able to come back into a natural balance when we quit messing with it. Those are my words, but that's what I'm finding. One of the women in my 8-week class, when I began the coursework in 2011, I guess, she was a surgeon. And when you're in these classes, you don't share in, your jobs. So I didn't know she was a surgeon. I knew she was a beautiful woman, and I was like, wow, what a brilliant, smart woman. But at the end, she shared, it was towards the end, I think week 6, things really start getting hot then, and whoa, I'm in it. She came to class and she said, I just want to tell everybody, I had the best day in surgery. She said, I had 5 surgeries back to back, but I was totally present. I was relaxed. I was calm. I was alert. And everybody in the operating room was with me. They were on my same wavelength, and it was beautiful. And I just had 5 surgeries, and I'm not tired. Now, that was a testimony. I love that story. And it's not magic. Sometimes it looks like magic, but it's not. It's just us waking up and taking the time to slow down and to be present. And nature helps us. So, forest bathing, immunity, and phytoncides. When we go into the forest, something quite incredible happens. Our bodies produce more natural killer cells. This really happens. Trees are biological organisms that have their own ways of defending themselves from attacking organisms. One of the ways trees protect themselves is by diffusing a special class of chemicals into the air called phytoncides. Phytoncides are similar to essential oils that are antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, and prevent the trees from rotting. Now, when we walk in the forest, we really are in this actual forest bathing. And actually, we're getting all of that. And it is said that 3 hours in a forest, the effects can last for weeks. But it needs to be, of course, a regular practice. But isn't that amazing that even after a few hours in this state of being present, and we know the other things that are going on at the same time. We're getting the physical chemicals, but the nervous system is calming down. We're more relaxed, calm. We can think straight or not think and just be. When humans inhale phytoncides, it prompts the human body to produce these. And for this reason, Japanese researchers named their practice of forest medicine forest bathing, Shinrin-yoku, because when people are in the forest, in the phytoncide-rich atmosphere of the forest, you might consider it a sort of natural aromatherapy. Now, this morning I brought my balsam candle. How many of you have an awareness of maybe just slicing a lemon and going, or a grapefruit, as I did the other day, and it was like, And so these balsam candles, whatever, we all have unique things we like or don't like, but anything that can bring this in is amazing. And as the little girl said, just thinking about this can shift our body's responses. Phytoncides released from trees also decrease the production of stress hormones and overall reduces stress in humans. Hence, the calming effect being in a forest has on a human. I want to have a brief history lesson. And in 1982 in Japan, they had a crisis because they had begun working indoors. They weren't outdoors anymore. Now, I'm simplifying this, but this is actually what happened. And the technology, everything, in 1982, everything was booming. Every business, they were all indoors. And they began having a massive crisis of cancer, of autoimmune diseases, stress-related, cardiovascular, name it. But this was like at a crisis level, and they couldn't manage it. So they did something really smart, not unlike Finland. When they have a problem, they actually get together and do something about it. And it's I'm not trying to be funny, it's really true. And the thing is, in Japan, they actually have something called forest medicine. They have MDs who are forest medicine doctors and nurses. So you get a prescription. If you're ill, you get a prescription. 3 hours in the forest every week.
That works for me.
Well, in America, the great fun, I don't know what's next here. Let's see. Oh, more words. Okay. Well, probably worth looking at this. Attention restoration theory is great. This was in the 70s, about the time I started teaching. Rachel and Stephen Kaplan came up with this, and it's really gorgeous, and it's now showing itself through, we're going, oh, that was right. Like for years, I was an early childhood educator, and I found out John Dewey, everything he said was true, and 100 years later, the neuroscience is proving that, yeah, we really do learn by doing something, rather than just thinking about it, you know. So this theory is coming around right. We find these 4 cognitive states: clear ahead or concentration, mental fatigue recovery, soft fascination or interest, reflection and restoration. And I have these notes over here on the POP and WIM in the Nature and Forest Therapy. The first invitation, you'll love this, is pleasures of presence. So really waking up. And the doors, remember a minute ago I said the forest is the therapist, the guide opens the doors. The doors are the senses. The doors are our senses and perceptions. I've got some cognitive scientists in the room. I bet they're enjoying this. Here's a guy, Jim Speth. He's an environmental lawyer and advocate, and he's from Orangeburg, South Carolina. And he said, I used to think that top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that 30 years of good science could address these problems. I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with these, we need a cultural and spiritual transformation. So that leads us to what Amos Clifford has brought into being. It's now international. The mission of the association is to embed forest therapy into healthcare systems. Now, Amos is an amazing person, and his book is lovely, Your Guide to Forest Bathing. He actually did, years ago, a 10-day vision quest and fast. And so that's a part of our training. I had a medicine walk from dawn to dusk, fasting in the wilderness as part of my training. We also had one in Norway that was a 3-hour, so I had a foundation. I knew I could do it. But the point is, he realized, and he then heard about Shinrin-yoku and went to Japan, studied their research, came back and thought, how can I bring this to our culture? Kind of like I did when I came back from Finland. I woke up in the middle of the night when I came back from Finland crying because I thought, who am I going to talk to? Who can I tell? And so he was like that, learning this about nature and his own experiences, in-depth experience. And he created these invitations and this protocol that's exquisite. And it's 2.5 hours long. Some of you here in this room have had the experience with me. And it ends with a tea ceremony, which you don't know until you come back from your last invitation. And this morning I went out and harvested some pine, and there's going to be a little taste of the pine tea for you, and you'll get to learn about that. I had to learn 6, and I won't go into that. That's another talk, but it's so wonderful. I should do that, by the way, Babs. I should give a talk on the natural teas and all their properties. But pine, this is the good news. You'll never be in the wilderness and starve. Because if there's a pine tree anywhere around, and in this part of the world there will be, you can eat every part of the pine tree. It is loaded with vitamin C. It is loaded with all the nutrients we need. Folks, we are living in a veritable pharmacy. Everything we need is already here. We've been given it. So, my own mission is to embed this in early childhood, in elementary and middle schools, working with children with special needs, individuals of any age in special needs, which is what I've done for many years. I've been thinking about the veterans, how healing this would be. So I'm going to contact the veterans and also elderly. I just have this dream of seeing how this can expand. And if you're interested in this, you know, everything's available. The website where you can go. I have one woman, Brooke, who's actually enrolled in the next training that's in Tennessee. She's going to be going through the training. And then you have a 6-month practicum, which is intense. But it was the call of my life. I had to learn the watershed. I had to draw it all. You can't just do photographs, like all the plants I had to learn. And I also had to learn the indigenous people that were here. Like when you take people on a walk, you need to know who was walking that earth before you. So now I've been dipped in this amazing history of the Hickory Nut Gorge and the Cherokee and the Catawba and the little people. Very real. So, I wanted to share this with you because I thought I could just take pictures of these things. Take pictures of the things I find online of the watershed. No. I had to draw it. And I want you to know that was the most amazing. I'm not a drawer, but I am now. But I had to draw the watershed all the way from where the Broad River begins right above my house down into the Rocky Broad where it comes into the Hickory Nut Creek and then the middle fork of the Hickory Nut Creek and into the Rocky Broad, which became the Rocky Broad in 1912 because of the big flood. Some of you know about that. It wasn't the Rocky Broad before that, but all these rocks are in it now, from Bat Cave to Chimney Rock. So then you'd come on down the Broad River, and it goes into Lake Lure, and then at Lake Lure it drops down into South Carolina, and then it goes to through Columbia, South Carolina. At Columbia it turns into the Congaree River, and at the Congaree River it goes into the Santee River, and in the Santee River it goes into the Atlantic Ocean. And I got to see where that was, which was just up the road a ways from where I grew up in Savannah. It goes into the Atlantic just above Charleston. So it's like, wow, my water. And I have streams. I had to draw those streams. You can come up and look at these drawings there. I had to see where all the streams on my property go down into the... Something happens to us when we become intimate with the elements around us. We need to know our watersheds. Do you know you have a watershed address? I had to learn mine. You can look it up. It's a GPS actual address of where you are, your watershed address. I had to draw the pine, and I would sip the tea while I was drawing whatever. And the other is the birch. When I was in Finland, I was introduced to birch. I fell in love with birch trees. But they drink it. They drink the tea, they put a jar in spring on a limb, they clip the limb, put the jar there, and they drink the birch water. And I mean, they take the forest into their bodies, and that's what we do. After the 2.5-hour walk, we end the ceremony, or end the walk with a tea ceremony, where we take the forest into our bodies by drinking the tea of whatever it is. What were some of the others? Birch, sassafras, nettle. I bet everybody here's had a cup of nettle tea. And it's great to cook with too. Who knew? And then I'm missing one. I had 6. I don't remember the other 2. They're not coming to me. That's okay. He knows what I'm looking for. But I just... it was so wonderful to find, bee balm. That was my first, because I did the training in May and June in Norway, and I come home to the Hickory Nut Gorge, and my place is full of bee balm. And I made the tea for my first group, and they were the Conserving Carolina Summer of Service kids, and 2 of them were actually, they knew about it. 2 of the girls said, my mama gave me that when I was little, for when I was hurting. She gave me bee balm tea. it's just so wonderful to learn all this. So, and we don't do it by trying. We do it by letting go. So what I have to let go of now is the time, because we've come to a close. But what a beautiful way to spend a morning of a Saturday in this beautiful spot. And Babs, I want to thank you again for allowing us to come here.